I Want to Jump Like Dee Dee, with me, Giles Sibbald, is the music podcast that does music a bit differently. I'm talking to some incredible musicians, DJs and producers about how they use an experimental mindset to fuel their own creativity, pursue new challenges, overcome fears, bounce back from mistakes. In 2016, Lena Bruland released her first EP as EERA. 4 tracks of really captivating, delicate songs that move from mysticism to reality through some really beautiful melodies that kind of grab you when you're not looking. And then in 2017, she released Reflection of Youth, which is a record full of really raw emotion and introspection. I think it's representative of a fairly turbulent period in her life. And she's now released a fabulous latest record, which is called Speak, which further strengthens the body of work with these sort of shimmering combinations of melody and discordance along really thoughtful lyrics and a hugely expressive voice. So I'm really happy to welcome Lena to the show. Welcome, Anna. Thank you so much for coming on.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Good. So how's life with you? And congrats on the new record, which came out I think in November last year, wasn't it?
Yeah. Thank you so much. I mean, it was a long time coming. I mean, obviously with you know what, it was kept on hold for a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, it feels really good to have it out now. It feels really nice to finally have it out in the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I find. I think this is a really good thing. I find your music. It's very difficult to kind of label your music, which I think is great. I love that. I'm not a fan of labels and sort of genres because people who sort of listen to this will know that I think it's kind of lazy. And it kind of discourages proper sort of thinking about the music. I mean, sure that there are sort of sounds in there that remind you of other artists, but it's really very, very unique what you're producing. Very kind of experimental, and it shows, for me, it sort of shows like a real interest in kind of innovating with kind of like sort of sounds and textures.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I guess it's just like all the different types of music that I listen to. I think subconsciously it just all blends into what I want to show. And I think it's because I started off when I was younger, listened to very classic kind of singer-songwriter stuff, then went into like a huge rock phase, and then now I'm into like shoegaze, like synth broadcasty, like warm synth sounds world. So it's kind of like all like combining those 3 together. So yeah,
I mean, I sort of really got some sort of shades of kind of like Emma Rundle's solo work, Daughter, My Bloody Valentine. There are really different influences, and the melody is when I said that it sort of takes you by surprise, it catches you when you're not looking. It's almost like because it sort of shifts from, I think that the kind of the chord progressions are so kind of special. So the melodies give me sort of feelings of like Mazzy Star, that kind of melody. It's really, I just find it's really powerful what you're doing.
Thank you so much. I mean, a lot of the way I write is very improvised. So I do a lot of improv, or when it comes to guitar, how I play guitar, how I play keys, how I sing. So I feel like it's the most true way to write, because then you write what comes out of you naturally. I do this a lot with lyrics as well. I just like say random words, and then clearly what comes out is what's in my head. So then I write from that, and I try to figure out why did these words come out. So it's not like a planned thing at all. It's very just, I just put myself in that space and with those effects, and I just go for it. Yeah.
And you were, if I'm not mistaken, you were classically trained.
Yeah.
It's in Liverpool.
Yeah, I mean, I was classical trained first in Norway, actually, for three years, and then I went to Lippa in Liverpool, and then I had pop vocals then.
Wow.
And then Sorry, she's barking again. I can't believe this. Come here. Come here. She's usually not this bad. I don't know why. Maybe she knows I'm doing an interview. She's just being a cow.
This
Down.
This is a proper interactive show anyway.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so I went to Norway and I studied classical there for 3 years, and then I went to Lippe, and then I did 3 years of pop singing, more exact SLS singing, it's called.
Yeah.
It's classical theater-esque singing, actually, so I didn't really get along with it. It's all about being very powerful and strong all the time, and I don't feel that that's a very nice way of singing.
Yeah.
But I feel like those two combined, because classical is all about softness and being like in your head voice is just like higher up, combined with this kind of musical-esque of singing. I thought that combination was quite cool in the end. Yeah.
Did you? I mean, with the sort of the classical training, did you? It's interesting now that the way that you write is kind of improvised. You know, you kind of write what's sort of in your heart and in your head, and it just sort of comes out. Did you ever feel that with the classic, or do you feel with the classical training that you have to work harder to kind of break out of that classical framework that you've learned?
I see what you're saying, because obviously classical is very strict and you can't really go away from the rules. And my teacher always used to say to me, no, you can't slide up on the notes. You need to like hit the notes. But I loved all about sliding. So I got a lot of critique from her, actually, that I wasn't doing it correctly.
Yeah.
So I never really followed the rules 100%. But I learned a lot from those 3 years. It was crazy having these vocal lessons, because you know, I did stuff where I had to like do like squats while singing, jumping on a mini trampoline. You know, it's just
You're
weird
kidding,
stuff
really?
like that.
Wow.
No. It's like classical vocal techniques are weird, but they're a lot of fun.
I never knew that.
Yeah. So yeah, I you know, but it was really nice coming to Liverpool and like just doing more like pop rock stuff that I wanted to do, and not having to be so strict and follow so many rules. So that was nice.
Yeah. My daughter's there at the moment. She's studying there at the moment in Liverpool. Yeah. And cool. Years ago, I mean, when I was a student, I was there as well.
Nice.
You know, because I was sort of born probably about 30 miles away from Liverpool. Right. So it's kind of like it was far enough away from home, but not too far that if I got into some sort of trouble, I could get home sort of quite easily. On a budget, on a student's budget, you know.
Yeah. I went very far from home. I just went from Norway to Liverpool. So yeah.
and also, I mean, I'm also, one thing I'm interested in is sort of like our environment, you know, the environment that we live in, and how that kind of impacts creativity. So, you know, obviously, you were, you know, born in Norway and then have lived in Liverpool, London, and now you're in Berlin. I mean, how have those sort of environments, you know, kind of impacted your writing, do you feel?
Well, I was always very drawn to England from an early age, because a lot of the bands that I was listening to were English. So like, you know, you got Radiohead, you got Portishead, PJ Harvey, like there's so much amazing music from England. So I always wanted to go there. I was more drawn to England than America, even though I love loads of music from America, but America politically is just so horrible. So I was like, I don't want to go there.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't want to go there. So yeah, I chose England, and obviously being around a lot of amazing musicians there, you know, shaped me to who I am today. A lot of the people I met at uni, I'm still friends with today.
Yeah.
And I think being part of, obviously I moved down to London after Liverpool, and being down in London and being in that music scene there was amazing. I mean, London is a very tough city because it's expensive and busy and all of this stuff. But wow, the music scene is absolutely incredible. And you can go to any night, you can go to a random pub and there's a band playing, and most likely they're good. And I have to say, comparing that to Berlin, there aren't that many, sorry Berlin, but there aren't that many amazing like rock bands here in Berlin. It's more about DJing and
techno.
Yeah, DJ techno. There's a lot of amazing fashion people here. There's a lot of amazing writers, like authors, all of this stuff. But in terms of like rock bands, it's not really that amazing here. So I miss that a lot. From London. Yeah, definitely.
I mean, does that sort of affect, you know, where you get your sort of inspiration from, or are you kind of like sort of writing about just sort of what you feel, what you see, what's going on in your life?
It's different when it comes to lyrics and the sound of the songs. I guess for lyrically, I just write what's happening with me or people around me. They're usually very personal lyrics. I try to write more imagery-esque moving forward because I'm really enjoying that. Just painting a picture, basically. I did that a little bit with Falling Between the Eyes on the record. I wanted it to be more like explaining nature images with words. But in terms of the sound, it's definitely inspired by who I meet, what I listen to, but more like who I listen, what bands I'm into. Like I can tell now with this latest record, you can kind of hear the music I've been listening to more now than what I listened to before Reflection of Youth. So you can definitely hear it through it. Yeah.
When you were come back to, you know, sort of when you were a kid, when you were sort of growing up, what were the sort of influences? You know, what was your childhood like that kind of like sort of formed, you know, who you became as a, you know, as a person? What sort of influences did you have?
Well, my grandparents were a big influence. So my granddad wanted all his grandkids, and he had 15. He passed away a few years ago, but you know, so he wanted everyone to have piano lessons. So he bought me piano lessons. Very grateful for that. So I started when I was 6, playing classical piano. I really want to get back to playing classical piano because I think it's very meditative. And so I did that. And he was a conductor and trumpet player back in the 50s and 60s, all up to he retired. So he was a big influence on me musically. Because my mom can't sing at all, and she nothing. And my dad is a little bit musical, but not that much. So so that started there, and then I went on doing the classic kind of when you're 9, you join a musical at the local school, and you know you do all that stuff. I'm not really that into musicals now, but I loved it when I was that age. And then from there I started playing some acoustic guitar. And I didn't start writing music until I was 16, 15 maybe. And those songs are not songs I'd like to play for anyone today.
Oh, really?
No.
Wow,
no.
I'm intrigued.
No. I find it so fascinating when you hear this incredible artist coming out of nowhere, like Billie Eilish, for example, and she's like, I just like started writing songs when I was 15 and they're good. I'm like, huh? How did you do that? No, I don't get it. But yeah, and then from that age, I started meeting more like-minded people. I had a close friend of mine when I was 16, and we kind of shared songs with each other. And then, and then, you know, I started classical singing and continue on with my classical piano when I was 16, and then moved to Liverpool, and the rest is history, basically.
Right, yeah. And sort of were you, I know entirely what you mean about that kind of classical thing. I mean, my mum wasn't really kind of into me. I mean, she liked a bit of, you know, kind of like sort of old school music. My dad was more sort of classically trained. He played the piano, but he was a vocalist. He sang in a choir, you know, and that sort of stuff. And he was the one that sort of pushed me into it. I mean, I trained classically in the cello, you know, until I was 16. So you know, kind of went down a sort of similar path to you with that instrument, and then I gave it up. I haven't touched it for God knows how many years. But
don't you regret it now?
I do. Well, it's funny. It's funny you say that, because about just before all the lockdowns, I went into. I mean, I'm in London, so I went into a music store in Soho, and just asked them if I could pick up a cello again. And I said, I haven't picked one up for about 30 years.
Whoa.
Can I do it? And fortunately, put me in my own little room where I could shut the door so nobody could hear me. But it's funny how, like, all these feelings that I had and memories that I could sort of pinpoint, when I was like 11 years old, when I was like sort of performing in my first sort of orchestra, blah blah blah, and all that all came back to me as soon as I took the instrument in my hand. It was weird. It was totally weird. And yeah, there's some regret there, definitely, that it was maybe not the right time for me. I was a bit sort of either petulant or just wanted to kind of break out because I felt that I'd been sort of pushed into, that's those sort of feelings.
Teenager feelings. No, but it's with me as well. I remember when I had piano lessons, I loved having the lessons with my teacher because she was amazing, but she had to have like a yearly performance in front of parents. And I used to hate that.
Oh, yeah.
Hated it. And it made me not enjoy it. Do you know what I mean? Because I was dreading that so much. For me, playing classical piano is, I never wanted to perform in front of people, that instrument. That was just for me. So when she did that, I remember I got so nervous. It was horrible.
Yeah.
And so yeah, any piano teachers out there listening, don't force your students to do that if they don't want to do it.
Absolutely right. Yeah. I mean, what you were saying about sort of, that you'd love to sort of play it again. I did an interview for not for this podcast, for a magazine with Emma Ruth Rundle. And she said that she used to play the piano, and she hadn't, because of her lifestyle and the band touring, where she was living, it just wasn't practical to have the piano. But she played it when she was younger. But she started again for her latest album. I don't know if you've heard it, but it's really phenomenal. I mean, it's a phenomenal piece of work. But she hadn't played the piano, but the expression that you get from that instrument it can be a different level.
Oh yeah, it's a beautiful instrument. Yeah, me and my boyfriend here, we're currently trying to find a new studio in Berlin. We're currently sharing with some people, and I'd love, if we get it, I'd love to invest in an actual piano so I can practice there.
Yeah. When you, I know you mentioned those sort of songs when you were 16, but let's sort of ignore those. But go back to, say, your first release as EERA. I mean, how looking back at that now, which is coming up for probably what, sort of 6 years. How do you feel about that? Those releases now? What do you feel when you listen to them again?
Weird.
Yeah.
Well, for me, I just, as musicians, or writers, you're always going to be years ahead of when you release stuff. So I'm already 2 years ahead of Speak, right? So I'm even more years ahead of
That's a good point.
EP.
Yeah.
So for me, I think it's very important to accept and move on and just say, those were the songs that felt right at the time, and I stand by that. It's not who I am anymore, because I feel like a lot of writers, especially when they haven't released anything, so before they're about to release their first thing, they hold off and they go like, oh no, but I don't feel like that anymore. And I was like, yeah, but you're always gonna feel like that, always. So for me, even though I'm proud of those songs. I mean, I'm very proud of those songs.
Absolutely.
And, I still stand by them. I mean, obviously, I listen to them now. It's like, oh, I would have changed that in the mix. I would have, now would have chosen another type of guitar and a different vocal take and all of this stuff. But that's just part of life.
That's part of it, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting how we as our own identity evolves and we change as people. When we go back, even sort of physical things, physical places that we go back to, for example, and I think it's the same for, either, kind of works of art, or pieces of music. When you go back, that music hasn't changed, but you have as a person, and it kind of highlights sometimes how you have changed. Kind of like where you were then when you created that versus where, kind of where you are now.
Yeah, and absolutely, and lyrically, I mean, that's, when I perform some old songs now, I almost feel embarrassed because I'm like, oh God, I can't believe I was that sad, or I can't believe I was that angry, or I can't believe I was, so in love with this person or whatever. So it's strange to tap into that sometimes, and you kind of have to put yourself back in the persona you used to be able to perform them in a way. Yeah,
I think I read. I read it in a an interview that you gave about Speak, is that you you feel that with this record you've become more confident and sort of braver in you know, as a sort of or as an artist. Is that so? This is a kind of like your part of your evolution, you know, as a musician. Does that?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted it to have a powerful message, and that's why I chose that title as well, because I feel like it's very just straight to the point. I didn't want any bullshit title, you know, and I didn't want to be pretentious about anything. I felt like Reflection of Youth can be a bit pretentious, maybe, I don't know. But anyway, that's just me shooting myself in the foot. But I wanted this record to be a lot more just straight to the point. That was my main message. I mean, I'm insecure. I have insecurities. We all do. If we don't do, I haven't met a single person without any insecurities. Love to meet that person, speak how that person does it.
Me too.
But I think sometimes I'm very good at dishing out advice for others and not taking them myself. And I think that's also, this record is kind of giving advice to myself, telling myself stuff. So when I listen back, I'm reminded of what I'm trying to tell myself. So it's kind of a booster to myself, but hopefully also to other people. And I wanted the main message just to be to speak up about things if you feel uncomfortable, even if you feel like it's silly or insignificant, etc. Because every emotion is valid, basically.
Yeah. What was it? Did you find it a sort of challenge? Like they were kind of like you had your own obstacles to get over to put out that sort of, you know, write about those sort of things which are about, you know, let's say your own self-acceptance. Is that with the kind of like, oh God, okay, come on, you can do this, you can put it out?
It felt quite natural actually to just go for it. I feel like I felt a lot of emotional around the whole concept of, you know, acceptance, because I feel like, you know, I'm over 30 now, and I feel like when I hit 30, it's the classic thing that everyone says, you know, when you hit 30 you accept more things and you don't give as much of a shit, but you still do 100%. I mean, I think also we're always going to be children. I don't believe in the concept growing up, because I don't know, even if I meet a person that's 70, still has insecurities and still have questions about life and still don't know what the hell is going on.
Absolutely.
And the older I get, I'm like, oh, maybe we can't figure out life, whatever that means. And now I understand more what my parents told me when I was growing up. That back then I was like, no, surely, you know, that can't be true. And I feel like that felt very natural with this record, to just tap into that and accept that life is very complicated, accept the fact that we will always have questions, especially being a writer. I mean, I question everything.
Yeah.
And that's fine. And we can live like that. That was important for me to do. Yeah.
I think that, I think you make some good points there. I think that, you know, that you know, going through life, you know, self-acceptance and the sort of the questions. I mean, I feel that, you know, myself with the, you know, some of the, you know, changes that, you know, that have happened to me. I found you never lose it. In fact, for me, as I've got older, it's got harder. It really has. And then when you think, you know, that we are generally as a sort of society, but, you know, kind of, and this does sort of highlight some of the a lot of the inequalities in the world, you know, kind of wealth inequalities, but generally people are living longer. And we're expected to, inverted commas, work longer as well. You know, so for people, you know, kind of paid jobs, you're expected to kind of work in those sort of paid jobs longer, which gets, you know, if you think that, you know, you're living longer, you've got like a working life of like over 50 years. It's really frightening. And then, you know, so that this fear of how you're going to manage as you get older. And I feel sometimes for me, as I get older, you start to worry more about those sort of things, so that, which makes you question your whole being. It's a weird dynamic that you get.
Yeah, and that's classic. When you get older, you worry more.
Mm,
The older my mom gets, the more she worries for me.
yeah.
It's classic. But I think it's a fine balance to figure out comfort versus what
Mm,
you want to do.
mm.
Because if I just chose comfort, I wouldn't have chosen to become a musician. No way.
Absolutely.
No way.
Absolutely.
No way.
I mean, especially over the last sort of couple of years or so. I mean, I guess
Yeah, yeah,
that's been a real sort of roller coaster. I mean,
yeah.
actually, not wanting to talk about specifically the sort of past 2 years, but
Mm-mm.
do you feel that this has given you sort of more, sort of resilient, personal sort of resilience and sort of courage to sort of face things and face the future and stuff?
Um, yes and no. I mean, I feel like I'm always developing as a person, and I'm always trying to, you know, move forward.
Mm,
Um, but with the music industry, it's a difficult world. It's
mm,
a bit of a beast, and especially when you do indie music like I do. Like, I'm not, Britney Spears.
mm,
Um, it's hard, and also, like, not to go into the financial side of things, but it is difficult. And I think
yeah,
for me,
yeah.
my whole thing now is just to try and figure out the balance I want to be within the music world. Like, obviously, I'm
Mm,
always going to write EERA stuff, but I always love to do other stuff too. I love to do collaborations.
yeah,
I feel more confident in doing stuff like that I didn't used to do before. So now I say yes to a lot more than what I
yeah,
did when I was younger, because I feel like when I was younger, I was just like, oh, I need to stay pure EERA. Like, I need to
yeah. I see.
keep that in the palm of my hand. And now I'm just like, no, because I'm learning so much collaborating with other people. I'm
Yeah.
experiencing a lot more. I'm getting loads more opportunities,
Mm,
and I'm allowing myself to use the skill set that I have within other parts of the music industry. And the more I do that, the more confident I feel, basically.
yeah. It's a good point, actually. I'm glad you brought up collaborations. I mean, can we just talk about some of the collaborations that you've done?
Mm-hmm.
Because I know you've done sort of soundtrack work, but and also what those collaborate. I mean, you hinted at it, but what those collaborations have given you?
Mm. It's kind of the main thing is getting a confirmation from your peers, like your colleagues, other
Mm,
musicians, that what you're doing is good, and they
yeah.
they hire they hire you specifically to do this job, which
Mm,
means a lot, because they can choose anyone, but they
mm,
chose you. So that feels really good. Plus, also, just getting proper paid from doing a job feels great, because
yeah.
there's still so many people out there that go like, oh, you should do this, it's exposure. And I'm like, yeah, but I need pay, I need
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is also
Yeah.
a profession that not everyone in the world can do, and
Yeah.
I want money for it. And it
Yeah.
might sound very
Yeah.
black and white, but it
Mm,
does make me feel pretty good
yeah.
when I do a job for someone, a collaboration, or a vocal line for something, and they go like, here's your pay, because what you did was a good
It was
and a
valuable.
professional
Yeah.
job and valuable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Absolutely. No, I totally get that. I mean, I think you're absolutely right there. I mean, I think that's, it's almost that people are kind of like expecting things. I think kind of generally in life for free or for
Hmm.
there's just been this sort of reduction in the value that artists in particular, particularly sort of creative industries
Mm.
offer. But you
Mm.
think okay, let's imagine a world without artists. Whether they be kind of like people who draw, people who paint, people who create
Hmm.
music, perform on stage.
Mm.
You take that away. There's a real kind of value to it. But again, I think what has happened, perhaps with sort of technology and the almost like on demand mentality as
Mm.
I mean, I'm sure there's lots more kind of things, but it's definitely a problem. But I totally agree with you. I mean, it's like part of, getting that value for what you do and
Mm.
recognition
Mm. But I think
is
also
hugely important.
it's not spoken about enough. I feel like
Mm,
I get messages from fans asking me directly, hey, how can we support you? Like, what's the best way of us supporting you? because
Yeah.
they don't know that if they play Spotify on a loop, that will give me what, 2 cents. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's,
Yeah.
so I think we just need to speak about it a bit more too, to be honest. Tell fans what they can do, tell ideas, etc. I think it's important. Yeah.
Are you doing any sort of remixing and reworking of other sort of artist tracks?
Yeah, I did one recently for an artist called Simon Goff. It's up on my Spotify right now.
Yeah.
So I did that one. I'd love to do more. It was really fun to just get all these stems and just move them around and put overdrive and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really fun. Yeah, I enjoyed that.
I think there's. I mean, I've noticed there's a real kind of resurgence almost in kind of reworking other artists. Maybe it's always been there and I just haven't noticed it as much. But I don't know. Maybe it's me just sort of paying attention a bit more than I've done in the past. But that's the feeling that I get. And what I really like with some of the things that I've heard and the way that remixes and reworks are sort of viewed now is how the song can be changed so much. It's almost like the song sort of becomes a living being that can sort of change and evolve itself, which I think is really exciting. The transformation that you can make for a song.
I always welcome, like, I have some friends of mine that I enjoy, and I, if they come to me, it's like, hey, can I do a rework, whatever, I was like, yes, please, I love it. And I love hearing what comes back, because what I'm hearing, my songs will be very different to what they hear, so
yeah,
it's cool to hear it.
I did I had a chat with Donald Johnson, who's the drummer in A Certain Ratio, and they did put out a remix remix album last year, and their approach was exactly as you said. That they basically like kind of found these artists that they respected, liked their work, and it was like carte blanche. Here are the tracks, just go and do your thing. No kind of like have a think about this. It's just like, there you go, just go and kind of do your thing, and let's see what comes back. And the excitement of it, of hearing it for the first time, must be incredible.
Yeah, and it's a great way to keep your creativity going, because if you have a writer's block, it's a really good tool, because then you keep on being creative, but there's a different type of pressure. Like, you don't feel pressure. It's just like, it's more fun, because like all the parts are there, so all you do is just adding to it or changing the sounds, and so it's fun.
I guess in with collaborations as well, that you from a mindset point of view, you're obviously dealing with other people, and you're sort of working out how to get the best out of them, or they're working out the best they're working out how to get the best out of you as well. And I think these sort of things, almost like having this sort of empathy and understanding of how other people work is just like really important. If we're going to do more collaborations, understanding how to do this rather than this is how it needs to be done, I think understanding other people's personalities, I think, is kind of going to be quite important.
Yeah, and I think people work very differently with collabs. Like, for me, it would be my nightmare to sit in a room with someone else and be like, let's write a song. Like, I couldn't do that.
Couldn't do that.
No, it's not my vibe. So like, for me, it's all about just sending files over to each other, and then I'll sit in my room and I'll just throw loads of stuff at the canvas, and then I'll delete what doesn't work and I keep what works. And that's definitely how I work, because again, it's a lot about improv, and I've never been the person that can do like jam sessions. Some musicians love to do that.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
It's not my thing.
That's not your vibe.
No.
Why do you think that is?
Probably insecurities. Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I always love just writing on my own and doing my own thing, and I think I have a selected few that I can write with, like Alistair, my long-term bandmate, and he produced the latest record. Him I can probably do it with, because I feel very comfortable with him. But it's very few people I can do that with. Maybe vocally it's okay, but like other instruments, no, I definitely need to just be on my own.
Yeah. It's an interesting one, isn't it? How we how we sort of work differently, and that almost like that you need that element of trust with somebody to, and that kind of like, that phrase, a safe space, where you feel that you can, because if you fuck something up, it's kind of fine. It's all right. It doesn't matter, and
yeah, exactly. It was funny because when I went on the tour with Public Service Broadcasting now recently, and they did a lot of jamming, like on during sound checks, and I remember I just stood there. I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna listen to like what they do. Sometimes I sat down and I was like, it's so funny. Yeah.
Another sort of area that I'm sort of interested in is how comfortable you might be with uncertainty, kind of like living in this sort of uncertain world, and how you kind of manage and navigate your way through that.
It's a very tough balance for me, and I find, again, with age, you want more security. It's just natural, and I definitely now, being a woman as well, like you get the question about children and all of this stuff comes up the older you get, and I've never really wanted a quote unquote normal life, but I also crave some normalities. Like for me, when I see old friends I went to school with and they have like the big house with the white picket fence and the classic like 2 cars and all this stuff, it sometimes gets to me, definitely. But then I suddenly get booked for a tour, or I do exciting things. I'm like, okay, this is definitely what's meant to be doing. This is for me. But it's hard to answer that question. I feel like it very much comes in waves. Some days I'm completely fine with it, and then if I have a difficult period, it's harder. So it's tricky question.
No, I think you're right. I think it is sort of one of those things. Again, I mean, there are so many sort of facets to these things. You kind of like resilience at a particular point, in the week. How kind of like sort of mentally resilient you're feeling, and then if there are other sort of particular kind of events that are happening in the outside world, and it's like, how's that going to affect me? And I guess the past couple of years have been perfect sort of example of that. But yeah, you're right. It's a sort of shifting thing. Where sometimes you're okay with it, others you're not, and then like you say, as you sort of get older, that those uncertainty levels sort of shift. And I also, it's interesting what you say about the kind of society's sort of what is really sort of society's definition of what we should have, which is the nice house with the lawn and the and the garage and the cars and blah blah and all that kind of stuff. And it's interesting how those sort of conformist sort of views, how they sink into us and sink into our mindset. Even though we tell ourselves, no, this is not me. This is just not who I am. And why am I listening to these voices that mean nothing for what my life is? But it's almost like so ingrained, isn't it?
Absolutely. But I feel, because I lived in a few different countries now, and I see how they are differently culture and how people choose to live. I feel like Berlin is quite inspiring, actually. There's a lot of families here that live a very unconventional life, let's say, and they have kids, and their kids are great, like super highly intelligent kids, and live a really cool life. Like I have a friend of mine who has 3 children. He lives in this warehouse converted apartment, and he has a music studio in the basement, and lives a really cool life, and the kids loves it. So it's you don't have to follow those guidelines to have, if you want a family. Not everyone wants a family, but but for me, the only thing I'm feeling personally is like, I come from quite a small town, from the ocean, and I do definitely crave living in a smaller town near the ocean, and I do feel that coming on more. Just mainly the ocean, because I live in Berlin, which is 4 hours away from the ocean, so it's pretty far. Yeah.
I remember when I moved to, I've been in London since 2008, end of 2008, and I remember like when I moved here, the one thing that I really liked, apart from like obviously the music scene, as you said earlier, is fantastic, but the kind of the anonymity that you can get, just the ability just to sort of disappear when you want to, like, and realizing that actually nobody gives a shit.
Yeah.
Nobody's looking at you thinking, what are you doing? You just get that in, and it's like that anonymity is just being able to take yourself away is just perfect. That was that was one thing that really attracted me.
Yeah, and you meet like-minded people. I mean, when I moved to Liverpool, it was so nice to meet all these people that had the same mind as me. It was incredible. And when I then moved to London, I met tons of people like me. So that coming from a small place into that is great,
Yeah,
it's good.
Yeah, for sure. So tell me what's coming next then? What's coming next for you?
Well, I'm hoping to do some shows with this record. I'm hoping. I think it would be just like a selected few in like some bigger cities like London, Berlin, just a few ones, and then we're trying to get some support slots here and there. So hopefully, be some touring. I'd probably be playing a bit more with Public Service Broadcasting at some point. With them. And then I'm recording again this year, later this year. So I'm already writing for the next thing. Because obviously I've been sitting on Speak for quite some time because you know what. So I've already been writing these new songs. So, and I have I can't say names, but I have a very exciting collaboration coming up later on. So lots of good stuff.
That's fantastic. And like you said, you're kind of like almost as an artist, you're a few cycles ahead of your last release, which is amazing.
You're always 2 years ahead. Yeah, always.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. Well, listen, Anna-Lena, thank you so much. That's brilliant. Thanks so much for coming on. It's been really great to talk to you, and I've really enjoyed it.
Well, likewise, and I apologize for my dog who's being a bit crazy, but
not at all, absolutely. Yeah, the more the merrier on this, for sure.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, take care of yourself anyway.
Yeah, you too. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the show, and I really hope that you enjoyed it and that you'll tune in for the next episode. In the meantime, it would be really awesome if you could rate and review the show, and also share it with any friends who you think might enjoy it.